Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is Ukraine War Hits and Losses video. Ukraine War news update, first part there for the 18th of August 2025. I've purged my system by ranting in the last couple of videos, given what I have just witnessed in terms of what Trump has said again this morning. And with other things, I'm going to show you the video I've just done a small video on previously because it's relevant to this video too. We're going to start with the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course. You can find them linked in the description below, We're 940 personnel lost, so under 1,000. That's fairly typical for the time at the moment. 2 tanks and 5 AFVs. That is fairly low. Those are low numbers in those categories, and that's fairly typical again or very typical for the recent days and weeks. 43 artillery systems, not quite double the daily average, but getting towards there, so that's fairly decent yet again in that category. A single multiple launch rocket system and 116 vehicles and fuel tanks, so fairly high there. I think the numbers are typical, nothing outrageous, nothing that really shouts out at all. So fairly standard day. Now, we heard yesterday that a Russian general had been hit, that he had lost some limbs. This is Abachev, Russian General Abachev. He's lost an arm and a leg after a strike in the Kursk region. Lieutenant General Ezadullah Abachev, deputy commander of Russia's North Group of Forces, has undergone emergency amputations of the arm and leg in Moscow after being seriously wounded in a Ukrainian strike, according to the HUR. That is a good the successful strike from the Ukrainians, absolutely no doubt about that. According to the HUR, Ukrainian units hit a Russian column on the Rilsk-Komatovka highway during the night of August 16th to 17th, and we're going to learn more about that. So I showed you the footage of that column that was hit, and actually we have some details of this, so I will come to that in a second. Let's continue. So Abachev was urgently airlifted by military transport aircraft to the central clinical hospital named after Vishnevsky in Moscow, where surgeons carried out the amputations. The result of the Ukrainian strike on the Russian military column in the Kursk region, it is likely that this is where the Russian Lieutenant General Abachev was seriously injured. So that's a video I showed you yesterday. I mean, it doesn't show an awful lot close up, but apparently this was a scene of an awful lot of destruction. And this is the highway from Rilsk to another town further to the east. And you can see lots of smoking vehicles, a couple of completely burnt out vehicles there, and other things up and down the road. So a column was apparently taken out there. Now, we have some details on this. So this is coming from a Russian source saying, so did you all see yesterday's video of our destroyed equipment on the Rilsk-Komatovka highway? Well, this is not some one-off raid. This is systematic work by the Ukrainians in our rear. The entire highway is strewn with burned equipment and corpses. No one even counted the number of 200s there. So in other words, dead. And who needs it, as long as we are talking about ordinary soldiers? But as soon as General Abachev reached 300, so as soon as he became injured, remember the code words for dead, cargo 200, and the code words for injured, cargo 300 are widely used. A miracle occurred. An order immediately arrived. The movement of personnel along this route is now prohibited. It turns out that there is a threat of death to personnel and destruction of military equipment. That's how we live. When the road is littered with the coffins of privates, no one gives a shit. But as soon as the general was hit, care was immediately found, an alternative was found. So it's possible not to drive people along the killing road earlier. It was just necessary for the general's arm and leg to be carried off first. Pointed acerbic comment there from a Russian saying, hey, you didn't care about us dying, and so you didn't change the rules about driving along this road, but as soon as the general loses his arm and leg, then we're not allowed to drive along that road. Thanks for your care and concern. Okay, Ukrainian soldiers captured another group of Russian troops in Donetsk. There seem to be quite a few captured soldiers coming out of probably that Pokrovsk area where the Azov are clearing out the Russian breakthrough soldiers. What else do we have? A Russian field warehouse where over 300 TM62 mines were stored epically flies into the air. About 2.5 tons of explosives has a destructive force of a radius of 30 to 50 meters and creates an anti-personnel death zone in the radius of 100 to 150 meters. Interesting video this. I mean, you only see a little bit, but you actually see the FPV drone approaching the mines, and just look at this image here before it cuts out. So just as we get a little bit closer there, I mean, it's not very clear, but those are the mines at the top, stacked, racked and stacked there. I mean, you can imagine that is going to cause one hell of an explosion. And indeed it did. That place detonated, as you can see. Right, we have in the Zaporizhia region, a Ukrainian FPV drone hits a 9S9321 control module for a Russian Bernal-T air defense automation complex, according to Serhiy Stenenko. That's really good news. That appears to be, air defense degradation. So happy days there. What is the Bernal-T? Bernal-T. I wonder. We'll see. Bernal-T, Russian intelligence and control modules. Looks like it's loaded onto a tracked system there. Yeah. Okay. Right. So something like that. Yeah. Wonder what the actual air defense, the Bernal. So I presume it's something like that helps the air defense. It's an air defense command post. So that's going to be pretty valuable for the Ukrainians. They're taking that out. Then we have this. The enemy decided to make. So the Russians decided to make a breakthrough. Attempt to make a breakthrough. I don't know how successful it was on the left bank part of Kupiansk. Now the left bank, I'm sure the river comes north to south, so that's actually on the eastern bank, so it's on the right hand side of the map, if you like. SBS destroyed a T-90M breakthrough tank. So we've been talking about T-90M, some people saying they haven't seen too many of them. I think the same amount of T-90s are around, at least they're losing the same number of T-90Ms, but the proportion of the total tanks lost is higher for T-90Ms. They're not losing more T-90Ms, they just have fewer of the other tanks. So from a percentage point of view, it looks like they're losing more T-90Ms. So they're losing the same amount, but that shows you that they aren't refurbishing as many of the older tanks, the T-80s particularly, I think, T-72s. Yeah, so a T-90M being used here to attack in the Kupiansk area, hidden in the forest belt as well, a BM-21 Grad multiple launch rocket system, a Tiger armored combat vehicle and a Kamaz truck, all taken out there. So good news for the Ukrainians there. I hope that they were able to repel the attack in Kupiansk area. Is this AI? No. So I've shown you this already. This is an extraordinary bit of footage concerning a Russian APC or IFV, I can't quite see. Is it AI? No, it's not. It's Russian media circulating footage of Russians assaulting Ukrainian positions in Zaporizhia while carrying an American flag. Pathetic propaganda stunt only underscores Moscow's desperation. I think it also underscores how they feel that Russia is aligned with the US, but even more so, the US is aligned with Russia. That Donald Trump has, and you can see this from the Russian newspapers today. Steve Rosenberg talks about this, about how Trump is aligned with Putin. That's what they're reporting in the newspapers. So this is pretty outstanding, pretty incredible that you would see the Russians ever doing this. You see an American flag next to a Russian one. Epic bit of trolling maybe, but I think there's a really poignant point to be made here, and that is a problem. Okay, we've got General Sursky here saying Zaporizhia will be the next target for the Russians. The war can continue at any time after the ceasefire. We must be ready. In other words, the Russians could easily break the ceasefires, and we've got to be ready for that. Russia has advanced near across to 10 to 12 kilometers. The occupiers are using the 1,000 cuts tactic here, the offensive of small assault groups, but just lots of small assault groups. That's what is, especially when your main line of defense is a drone line, and you're wondering whether, well, not you're wondering, it appears that that's a substitute for troops on the ground, and so therefore you have very light defenses if the Russians are able to break through the kind of drone line. Every ordinary Ukrainian anti-aircraft installations have AI elements, so that's interesting. And more than 3,200 drones have been shot down by our helicopters with machine guns in a year. Wow, 3,200 in 1 year taken out by helicopters. In Bakhmut, Russian Wagner lost 40,000 people killed and wounded out of 50,000 of the total composition. The ratio there was 1 to 7.7. This is a best indicator during a full-scale war. So reiterating the very favourable ratio that was certainly at the beginning of the Bakhmut interaction there. The Russians had horrific losses. Putin wants to seize more territories, and this takes time. So a few sort of nuggets there from General Syrskyi, the commander-in-chief for the Ukrainians. Now we're going to go on to distant strikes, and it was a pretty horrific night for the Ukrainians. The Russians hit hard and hit horrifically. It was a case of a number of civilians dying and interception rates not being very good. And I think this was definitely a marked point that Putin and the Russians were making, given that Zelensky and the Europeans are going to the White House to talk to Trump. So we had 144 missiles and drones sent, 4 ballistic missiles. None of them were intercepted. They all hit in Ukraine. And then 140 drones sent in, and only 88 of them were intercepted. So that's not a very good interception rate at all. I don't know exactly. I had to work out the maths there. Yeah, it's going to be something like 60%, I'm guessing. It's just over 60%, something like that. Anyway, not good interception rate, and it probably shows that the Russians were throwing those Shahids against places like Kharkiv, places close to the line, maybe even Zaporizhia area. Obviously, you've got your Sloviansks and your Kramatorsks and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it was not a good night for the Ukrainians. Ukrainians haven't hit the Russians majorly in the last 3 nights, so I wonder what's going on there. Yeah. Here we have, again, Syrskyi saying that 3,200 Shahid-type drones have been shot down by helicopters. Quote, the Army aviation has proven itself very well. Helicopters equipped with machine guns are highly effective. I've talked about this before. I've said that helicopters are a really good way of shooting down Shahids. You can choose when to shoot them down. You're flying alongside the Shahids. You can make sure you shoot them down over places like farmland, so it doesn't drop on urban areas and kill people. But also, you can guarantee your interception effectively. You're flying alongside it, and you're just going to pump it full of lead. I've seen a minigun be used, and that was pretty impressive to take out Shahids. Now, as effective as they are, the problem with helicopters is that there aren't enough of them. So it's great to see 3 just being loaded on in Bulgaria, a couple of 3 Me helicopters that I assume can be used in this kind of way. I think some of the Sea Kings that are going to be coming from Germany, I don't know, I've not heard about them for ages. Another 6 of those. The UK gave 3 Sea Kings, old helicopters, but you'd use them for troop movements, and we use them for air, sea and rescue until relatively recently, replaced by the Merlin, and then now kind of commercial helicopters and whatnot. But those you can easily mount a machine gun and just use Sea Kings to go and hunt down Shahed. So I'd get as many helicopters as possible up in the air, taking out Shaheds. What you want to be wary of course, is shooting down your own helicopters. You know, you've got air defenses, trigger happy air defenses probably, waiting to take out what's in the air. You got stuff flashing on the radar, shove up your missiles. Oh dear, we shot down a Me helicopter trying to take out a Shahed drone. So anyway, I'm sure they know what they're doing, obviously. But yeah, helicopters have been very, very effective there. Okay, moving on. At least 8 injured in a Russian ballistic missile attack ahead of the Trump-Zelensky meeting. So again, linking these attacks last night to the meeting today as very much the Russian way of doing things. We expected it at Alaska, but I wonder whether they thought it was too much. They didn't want to annoy Trump there. And now, I guess the idea is now they've got Trump on side, they can just freely go and bomb the crap out of Ukraine. So the claim here is at least 8 people have been injured in a Russian missile attack on the residential building complex in Kharkiv. According to the mayor, actually it's far worse than that. So 12 multi-story residential buildings have been hit. So 12 buildings have been hit in the attacks on Kharkiv. Now, Russia attacked Ukraine with 4 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, said Anton Gerashenko, and 140 drone strikes were recorded in 25 locations. In Zaporizhia, 17 people were injured, including a teenager. 2 of the injured are in serious condition and hospitalized. Residential buildings and an industrial facility were damaged, and you can see lots of evidence of that. In fact, pretty horrific in Zaporizhia. Andriy Yermak said also a Russian ballistic missile striking our city. That's why Putin doesn't want to stop the fire. He likes to shell peaceful cities and talk about wanting to end the war. We don't see this desire yet. So some fairly horrible images coming out of Zaporizhia, commercial properties taken out, people injured there. You've got, explosions in the roadside. That's a ballistic missile. That's hitting a residential area. Circle error probable. I mean, it might have been trying to hit something nearby, but the accuracy isn't great. The question is, even if you are charitable enough to the Russians, you say, right, you were trying to hit this military thing in the middle of Zaporizhia city, and the circle error probable of that missile is, 500 meters. So the 50% of the time, as long as you hit within 500 meters of the target, then it is still deemed a precision guided munition. 50% of the time, it can go bloody anywhere. And even the 50% of the time it does hit, if the CEP is 500 meters, I don't know what it is for an Iskander-M. In fact, let's go and find that out, because let's get the proper facts here. Okay, so this is a much more accurate missile then. So the CEP the Iskander-M has a CEP of 5 to 7 meters when coupled with an optical homing head, or 30 to 70 meters. So it depends which one it is, right? And this is coming from Wikipedia. So it might be 5 to 7, it could be 30 to 70 meters. But of course, that's only 50% of the time. So 50% of the time it can go anywhere. But 50% of the time, it might be that 90% of the time or 95% of the time, I don't know, it does hit within 5 to 7 or 30 to 70. Point is that if you've got that genuine target that is still like 30 meters away, 50 meters away, or whatever, or you're within the 50% of the time, it doesn't have to hit within that radius, then you're going to cause civilian destruction here. So the question in a kind of military legal point of view is it proportional? So how vital was that target to be able to justify using a missile within the context of a civilian area, even if it might have, and that's assuming it does actually have, the Russians did have a military target they were going for. It might just be that they were wanging this missile into a civilian area, in which case it's a war crime. What I'm trying to say is it could also be a war crime if they were genuinely going for a military target, because it's about proportionality. So if this is the wrong missile to be using to try and hit that target, and the probability of hitting civilians is as high as it is, then that constitutes a war crime as well, as far as I understand it, if I remember correctly. So the point is, even if we've been charitable to the Russians here, it's still a massive problem that they're using Iskander-Ms in the middle of Zaporizhia city. Russia has resumed missile attacks on Ukrainian cities, says Tim White. In Kharkiv, 8 people have been injured. So this was last night. Actually, it's worse than this. So including a 13-year-old, 12 apartment buildings were damaged when a rocket hit a populated area of the industrial zone. Sumy was also attacked twice. An aerial bomb was dropped on Novoslobodska, around 50 kilometers from the border. 57-year-old woman was rescued from a house destroyed in the bombing. 10 private houses have damaged there. In the city of Sumy, Russia has hit a college. We're going to see more of this, but it was horrific damage to a university building. In Kharkiv, the injury count has climbed to 11. This is imagery from the scene last night. Then we have here, Odessa was also hit. Local council have not confirmed the hits yet, but they're thought to have been at least 2 strikes on the city. One target was a Novoposta branch. Actually, it might be next to the Novoposta. Novoposta took some damage as well. We'll talk about that in a second. And that arrival was caught on camera in Odessa there. And then in Russia, Lipetsk was reportedly under heavy drone attack, but there's no details I can see of anything that was struck in Russia, although there's some details of occupied Donetsk that was hit. We'll come to that later. Right, so in Kharkiv, Russia hit a residential building, and now we know it killed 6 people, and I think they were all in the same family, and I'm presuming that apartment block right at the top there. So 2 children, at least 20 more were injured, among them 6 children. In the Odessa region, strikes caused a massive fire at a fuel and energy infrastructure facility. So it was the soccer, well, we'll come to that in a second. So Kharkiv, that's the building. I mean, this is horrific. 6 people died, all of the same family. I mean, it's just heartbreaking, heartbreaking. And the Russians are just complete bastards. So Russian attack on Kharkiv, 4 people killed, it says here, actually 6. Among them a child, 18 more injured, actually more than that. So, these numbers change as time goes on. Here, the reason I've got this one, because actually the numbers are different there again, is it gives you a really good aerial view of what happened. Youngest victim was 18 months old when Russian Guran 2 drones struck a 5-story apartment building in Kharkiv. And in fact, that has been caught on camera, I think. An entire family, our neighbours from the 6th floor, was killed, is a quote from someone in that same block, says Anton Gerashenko. Oksana, a resident of the apartment building in Kharkiv attacked by Russian drones, told thus this morning that Russia killed her neighbours, a father and mother, a 2-year-old daughter, and their 16-year-old son. Entire family. So actually, the entire family is 4, and then it looks like 2 others were killed as well who might not have been in the family. They were a young couple. They had recently moved in, bought this apartment, and their baby was born here, Oksana shared. In Kharkiv, a Russian strike killed 5 people, including 2 children. At least 20 were injured, among them 6 children. Well, as we know, 6 died there. So the mayor of Kharkiv, so this is the explosion. At the building, one presumes it's that building. The mayor of Kharkiv showed the moment the Russian strike hit the residential building. According to the Ihor Terekov, the strike was deliberate. 5 enemy Shahids approached it from different directions, targeting people who were peacefully sleeping at 5 in the morning. So the idea here, the claim here from the Ukrainians is this was not a legitimate target. This was not a military target. You had 5 drones targeting a residential building and 6 people died, 4 of the same family. This is horrific. This is what the Russians do. It is terrible. Here is the Sumy State University building destroyed by the Russians last night. At night, they attacked it with drones and the building burned down. We've got images of it. You can see it's still smoking there. We've got images of it burning at night. I mean, just absolutely horrific damage done to what looks like a relatively modern university building there. And again, Russians, terrible. This is it burning last night. Russia struck Sumy last night, deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure at an educational institution. The blast wave damaged facades, shattered windows and doors, and caused a large-scale fire. 2 5-story building. Residential buildings were also damaged in the strikes. So Russia were going to town last night. Here, there's the attack on Odessa, and although the Novopochta took some damage, I think they were going for the Sokar oil depot there that was next door. Now, this is the Azerbaijan oil infrastructure that they'd previously already targeted. I don't know if it's this exact one. Azerbaijan have come out and said, look, if you continue to do that, we're going to provide weapons to Ukraine. They've already provided $2 million worth of humanitarian, I think, electronic aid. Sokar is an Azerbaijani state oil company. 17 fuel tanks, a pumping station building, operator and technical rooms, as well as weighing points and fence around the territory were damaged, Ukrainian media are reporting. This is not the first attack on Azerbaijani objects in Ukraine. Previously, another Sokar, so it was another oil depot, was attacked in Odessa region. A gas compressor station was attacked in Orlovka. That was across the river from Romania, across the Danube, through which Azerbaijani gas was delivered. These Russian attacks are deliberate and are a clear signal to Azerbaijan. So this is Azerbaijan being drawn into the conflict. Azerbaijan oil depot struck by 10 Russian drones in a second Odessa attack this month. It required over 100 emergency responders and a railway fire train to extinguish the flames there. So Ukraine was hit pretty heavily last night. Overnight, as you can see, the Shahed drones took out those Sokar facilities in Odessa. You can see some pictures there. On the other hand, there were some explosions, as mentioned. We've already said Lipetsk in Russia was targeted. I don't know of any information coming out from there. Explosions here in Makivka in Donetsk region. So it looks like there was something fairly substantial that was hit last night in occupied Donetsk, but I don't yet have the details. Here you can see Ukrainian drones attacked occupied Donetsk at night. Lots of explosions were reported and one big fire could be seen. What it is, I don't know. And then we're going back to probably, is it 4 nights ago now? The Elastic gunpowder plant in Ryazan that was absolutely leveled. We now hear that 14 people were killed there, 14 workers, and 149 people injured. We don't, after ammunition exploded there, debris clearance continues. We don't quite know what happened there because We're not wholly sure that was drones from the Ukrainians. It might have been sabotage, and it could have been it could have been an accident. I say it could have been an accident, so I believe there was an explosion there before the war in like 2020 or something like that. So it has had accidents before. It could also have been drones and missiles. So who knows? No one has announced what it was that caused the explosion there. But my goodness, it exploded, and a lot of people have died, and a lot more injured in what is, I think, probably a significant impact to the Russians' military-industrial complex there. Now, Russian crude oil flows to Hungary. They were halted as Ukraine attacked a transformer station of the pipeline leading to Hungary. This is no doubt the Druzhba pipeline, but Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó, again from Hungary, he's been whinging about that and saying, Ukraine, can you stop hitting infrastructure that is delivering oil to Hungary? And Ukraine are like, hey man, this is Russian oil infrastructure, we're going to hit that. Right, not too much in the other bits and pieces section, because actually I've already done a video to detail what's going on in the White House today and what Trump has said and what Rubio has said. And anyway, this is another Oscar-worthy performance by the Russian FSB. They are apparently foiling a supposed Ukrainian plot to blow up the Crimean bridge using a car bomb hidden inside of a Chevy Volt battery. According to their version, the car entered Russia via Upper Lars checkpoint and was moved to Krasnodar before reaching Crimea. Another episode of FSB TV. Now, as someone says, Oscar, I've shown you a number of these videos before. I'm absolutely positive this is a fake video. This is completely staged. All the videos are so obviously staged, in my opinion. Like, look at this. They're just, honestly, this is just staged. It has to be staged. Look, there's absolutely no resistance. It's just limp-handed men with their faces blurred, with their head in under the bonnet of a truck that's carrying another car, and then no doubt we're going to get photos at the end of. I haven't actually looked at the end. It's complete. There we go. Oh, look what we've seen. Photos at the end. Here we go. Yeah, just this looks entirely staged to me. And then you get the evidence of the stuff they find in bags and all that. But them piling out this, I don't know. It might not be staged, but my goodness, they've got good form for staging these sorts of videos. Quick drive alongside them. Oh, look. Oh, okay. I won't even get my head out there. Oh dear. And limp-wristedly, I allow you to put the restraints on me, and that's the end. As easy as that. Okay. But it might have happened. And that's that. I don't have anything else for you today. There's going to be a lot of focus on what's going on in the White House. It is an incredibly important day today. That meeting, or those meetings, because there'll be first one with Zelensky and then with the European leaders. Trump has said, look, I'm really honoured to have so many European leaders meeting in the White House. I think it's a record. So he is honoured, but then he's also laid out all of the stipulations for Ukraine already, and he's gone total pro-Russia. I've done a video on this already. It is disgusting. Let's see if there's anything else. US trade advisor Peter Navarro says India must stop buying Russian crude, warning it funds Moscow's war and undermines US-India ties. That's good news. He argues India is cozying up to Russia and China, making it risky to share advanced US defense tech. India's oil lobby is funding Putin's war machine. That has to stop, says Peter Navarro there in an opinion piece somewhere. I don't know. So Russia's redeployed troops near Zaporizhia, according to there's a new missile for the Ukrainians. That's good news. I'm going to talk about that in another video. At night, the oil depot at JSCAK Transneft was hit near the village of Novonikolskoye in Tambov region. So firms data is showing that Ukraine has hit an oil depot last night. So that is good. But yeah, as I said, it was all my talk this morning was about the the Trumpian claims on Truth Social that were nothing short of absolutely egregious. So go and check my previous video out about that. I'm just trying to show you what he said, because it was bad. So this kind of says it all. You know, I've got your back, says Trump, stabbing Zelensky in the back. Yeah, so this one. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. As I said previously, that's like asking Winston Churchill to give up the war in 1940. Just give up, give Hitler what he wants, and then of course they come and take a second bite of the apple. So what you need, if you are going to come to a quick agreement, you need absolutely robust security agreements. But essentially, Trump is advocating that first of all, it's necessary that Ukraine give up territory, which he said last night. Then he said this today, which is and you need to just give up the fight, and then you're not going to get back Crimea. No getting back Obama giving Crimea. And then he says all caps, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. So if you are going to have a quick deal, you absolutely need robust security guarantees, but you say you can't have robust security guarantees because you can't be part of NATO, and that's the only decent security guarantee that you're going to get. So Trump is giving away, and then he says we are going to do negotiations. So after this, after you capitulate in 4 different ways, one of them is just abject surrender. After you capitulated entirely, then we're going to do negotiations. But you can't have any of this. And do you know what I'm deciding that as United States of America? Even though you're going to have negotiations with Russia. Insanity. It's horrific. The last 24 hours, in terms of what Trump has said, have been horrific. He's gone completely back on what he was saying before the Alaska summit, and that Alaska summit has been pivotal in turning him back against Ukraine. He is now fully on the side of the Russia, to the point where, as I mentioned in my earlier video, but in case you didn't watch that, Steve Rosenberg, the Russian media is saying today Trump has adopted Russia's position. Writes one Russian newspaper today. Trump has adopted Russia's position. Another newspaper, maybe the same one, says he will present his peace ultimatum to Zelensky. So Trump will present Russia's peace ultimatum to Zelensky, and there's no doubt it's an ultimatum. This is a bad day at the office for Ukraine, really for America, as I think that they have just shown themselves to be completely subservient to Russia. And then an infantry fighting vehicle reflects this by whacking an American flag on top and charging at the Ukrainians. It's bad. It is that bad. Anyway, take care. I'll speak to you soon. Toodle pips.